Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Vacuum Exposition. Of course, we are back with another episode in, of course, the spooky season. So I have all of my fanciful orange and purple lights up. I have the Ghost Rider watching over us today, as well as many other Halloween adornments in my little film space here. As many of you guys know, Halloween is my absolute favorite time of the year. I guess the fall in general. It's just that cozy time period, which ultimately, embraces a lot of what I do with my channel. Of course, being indoors, it definitely poses the question, what else can we use whilst hanging out in from the rain and cold of the fall? Now, of course, we are coming a bit late. I know. I've tried to stay on my schedule, but it has just been so hard lately. We had one wedding last weekend on a Sunday, and we had another one this past weekend on another Sunday. And the rest of that weekend was taken up, catching up on some other things, like me and my dad went to a baseball game as kind of a late Father's Day gift. So that was a whole lot of fun. But unfortunately, as things add up on the weekends, it definitely does get a bit harder to stay on track with some things. Now, of course, I know you all have seen what our video is about today in the thumbnail. That's why you clicked on it, of course. So, but either way, I did want to get on and talk a little bit about the channel right now. Now, we are going into, like I said, the colder season, so I'm going to be focusing a lot more on the storage units and getting things kind of situated with that. There is so much more work to do, and I want to bring you guys more into it, but we have had so much to do, and oh man, I've been swamped and tired, and even when I do get over there, there's only so much a guy can do with the amount of energy you have after, you have all the plans that I do. So, but I promise you there will be changes soon. Honestly, there haven't really been a whole lot of things that I've done in there, aside from just kind of mash some things in here and there, make sure that there's room for other things, other places. So like for instance, I was over at storage units this past weekend, and all I did was took some bins that I got recently and dumped a bunch of, tattered old cardboard boxes full of parts into the bins, make it a little bit more organized. Nothing that I would necessarily want you guys to like sit there for like 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes watching me just kind of like throw things in boxes. Now, if we're doing more, moving the vacuums, hanging things on the wall and putting them up on, their stanchions and stilts and everything like that, different. Not to mention when we, get a little bit further in, we'll do more tours and whatnot in there so that you guys can kind of see the progress, how things are going. But today's vacuum definitely did come out of one of the storage units today. It's one that I got a long time ago that is pretty special to me. I say that about a lot of them, I know, but this one was an interesting one and came to me, locally actually. And me and my local machines, I like to keep them around, and boy, is this one a fun one. So, but without further ado, let's get on to our vacuum for today, and take a look at another really cool one. All right, everybody, so we got this big Herkin monstrosity to take a look at today. Now, a lot of you know that I love my canister vacuum cleaners, and especially Electrolux's. This one being one of them. Now, what we're looking at today is about a 1975 Electrolux Model CB. Now, I know, some of you Electrolux fans, maybe you're a burgeoning collector and you're starting looking for, the different canisters, the L's, the Model 30s, 60s, and all such things in between, and you're looking at this going, I assure you, this is something of merit, something very special, something that many people don't usually find very often, mostly because, well, these got treated, very harshly. Now, what we're looking at essentially is one of Electrolux's commercial counterparts to their canister line. Now, I know what you're thinking, Carl, it looks like a giant shop vac. And well, you would be pretty correct in that assumption. These function very similar to a shop vac, Now, Electrolux's, of course, had a little bit more powerful of a motor, and thusly, these definitely had a little bit more oomph than a regular shop vac, but these actually came out quite a bit before a lot of those modern day shop vacs that a lot of us know. I mean, they have had commercial vacuum cleaners that utilize this kind of body style with the, you know, puller type fan that points down, sucks through the hose up here or through the top somewhere. That's actually been utilized since probably the 20s or 30s. And honestly, that's how a lot of the early type electrical vacuums were, is some type of a puller motor, you know, that went into a large receptacle like this. Now, the Model CB was a very interesting machine. This actually came out a lot earlier, probably around about 1965 or 6, and actually came out towards the Electrolux Model G, one of the more famous canisters that Electrolux came out with, and one of the more popular ones, as it was on all 4 large-ish wheels, and thusly became a permanent staple with its PN1 power nozzle. Now, the early Model CB came in the coloring of the early Model G, kind of a turquoisey motif. Now, this one came out quite a bit later. This came out in the 1970s, like I said, about 1975. It was meant to come out around the time of the 1205. Now, for those that have seen my video, definitely go back and watch my video on the history of the 1205. I did a video of that about a couple years ago almost now, talking about a very, very early example of it. But this was meant to go along with that, as well as a matching Model L, which was kind of the budget model canister. These were meant to be almost your, you know, your commercial machine, hence CB commercial. But these were a very, very well-built machine, of course, big body, you know, heavy-duty motor and everything. And they even made a water version of this machine, so you could do wet-dry cleanup as well. Now, they did have bags for these, actually, but most of the time people either used a type of shakeout bag, or unfortunately just had it dump right here into the tank, which is a big reason why a lot of these aren't around anymore, is because they ended up rusting or rotting out the tank, and thus, you know, people just threw them away. Kind of like how the plastic ones, you know, if you didn't have them on like caster dolly wheels like this one is, you just drag it around the ground and eventually you'd wear holes in it, and then it was, you know, you lost your suction and it was just, you threw it away. It was just a pile of junk at that point. But I'll open up the top here, kind of show you what we're working with. Now there's 3 latches on this machine, one kind of at each corner that needs to be, but basically here's what we're looking at. So what you can see is this is that shakeout bag that I was talking about. Now mine is not in the greatest of shape, I will acknowledge that, but it's still here. A lot of the times, once these got holes in it, you know, you had moths or something and whatnot, it would end up, you know, destroying the bag, and thus, you know, you threw it away and then just used it, well, like you would a shop vac. Unfortunately speaking, though, that would also end up doing numbers of damage to the motor, and you know, you don't want that. When you stop filtering the motor, well, you cause more problems. Now, in addition to the introduction of the 1205 over years of Electrolux history with their canisters, they had other things that went along in these sets. Like I said, this would have gone with 2 other vacuum cleaners, but you also had things like the B8 floor polisher that would have come out, which, as I recall, that was the first redesign that would have matched this machine. But with the introduction of the B8, you had more of a lawnmower style handle, which was a big, you know, chrome loop that went around instead of just a T, you know. But I'll actually show a picture of the introduction of that B8 that mentions the CB right here. Now, this would have actually been a page out of the back of the 1205 manual, because, to be honest, you didn't see a whole lot of Electrolux ads. And if you did, they were usually for vacuum shops, or maybe for the rebuilds that were done by a company called Cosmopolitan that you could buy out of different catalog ordering systems like JCPenney's and Montgomery Ward's. But otherwise, you didn't see a whole lot of them. So Electrolux, they had to rely on two things: the manuals, or assorted paperwork you would get with your new other vacuum cleaner, or the door-to-door salesman. Now, Electrolux has always sold a lot of their vacuum cleaners door-to-door. I don't recall seeing anybody hauling one of these big guys around door-to-door to sell them, but I do know that these were popular enough, that they were sold in big quantities. Now, this is actually one of the very, very last models of the CB, and probably the most popular. They did come out for many, many years, but unfortunately, we don't see too many of the early models, and to that extent, we really don't see any of the later models either. This, like I said, being the more common one, you did still have a lot of the options that you would have liked to have had with these. Now, this being one of the last ones, you had a later style power nozzle port right here. There was another model that was very similar to this that would have come out probably maybe a year or two earlier, that actually would have had just kind of a regular two-prong wall plug that you would have just plugged your regular old, extension cords into. They changed that to a different style, as well as, just overall to make it a little bit more proprietary, I think. Now, this one has seen some better days, but it's in pretty good shape. There's not a whole lot of big dents or dings in the also very sound tank here. It did come with a different hose, but somewhere in all of my stock, I was able to actually find this hose, which is an all plastic hose or a vinyl hose that is just a unpowered regular old straight suction hose. It would have actually had the option of a woven hose that would have matched the 1205, and in addition to, would have been an option with the PN4 power nozzle, as I recall, which was a chrome hooded one. Now, very, very nice, and I would love to find one someday, but unfortunately finding the right one that has this power nozzle port is pretty hard to find. I've tried for a long time, but maybe that's just something I'll find down the road at some point. But these commercial Electroluxes, you just don't seem to find very easily. I actually have found a couple different ones of these locally. This one was actually found right in my area. I actually used to live a little bit further north, and this came up for sale, and I ended up finding it very cheap. I think it was like $20 or $30 maybe, and the person that I bought it from met me that day, and then like maybe an hour later, kind of similar to the same place, another person with a different Electrolux met me the same day. So this one actually came in at a time when I was getting multiples, so which it is a pretty special one. I like finding these things, from the original areas. Buying something like this off of eBay would be exponentially expensive because it is just so big, and in order to get a box and everything for it to work, it's gonna take a lot. Now, these are a lot bigger than I thought they were, but they're also a lot smaller than what I thought they were going to be. Now, I grew up with big 90s Craftsman, shop vacs are like this big, and, they've got a hose that's like, humongous, and when I found this and actually saw the actual shape and size of it, I was actually taken aback a bit because, I was like, wow. In pictures, they just seem so, gargantuan, but really they're not very big. But either way, still very happy to have found one. And I'm still keeping an eye open for the CA, which was the commercial canister of machines. It was kind of, came out during the G time frame as well, but it was definitely a lot more different, kind of more boxy and whatnot. But a lot of really cool options that you could get with this machine. Of course, you did have more commercial tools too, so you didn't just have the your standard issue home care type tools. You had wider brushes and all kinds of great stuff. Now, I don't have any of the tools with this. Honestly, when I bought it, it was just this and then another hose that went actually for a Model G that I have. So I'm just going to do a run demo and kind of show the suction on the carpet here with the hose, and of course, do the plug test, like I usually do, and see how it does. So let's get on to our run demo. All right, everybody, so we have got the old Electrolux CB from about 1975 all plugged in and ready to rock. Like I said, we're just using the hose today. This is a little bit louder than a normal Electrolux canister, but either way, let's see how much suction this thing's got. So let's get to it. And there you have it, folks. Another successful run demo. Of course, like I wanted to show, is that kind of the plug test to see how much suction, and it definitely sticks. I mean, shoot, I got it stuck to the side of my head, no problem. But either way, it definitely does pull up on the carpet. I really wish I had a power nozzle that worked with this thing, because it'd be very interesting to see how it actually, you know, stacks up, especially against its residential type counterparts. But either way, still very impressive suction. It's kind of funny when, you know, you test out, you know, the plug test kind of thing, and you can hear, you know, the drum on this thing thump 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 thump, kind of like old the paint canning type sound. So it's always so interesting to see what or the different things that these things do. So, but either way, I hope you guys all enjoyed our little run demo for today. Well, everybody, we've come back to the end of another one. I know normally I like to kind of put the vacuum up on my lap and, you know, just kind of have it say goodbye together with me, but this thing's a monster, so we're just gonna let him sit on the ground here. But it was so cool to get this thing back out again. I've had this for years, and honestly, I haven't really done very much with it because they're just so big. They're not easy to take around with you. You know, when it comes to displaying them, it's kind of hard if you don't have a whole lot of space. And I really am lacking on the whole space game right now. So either way, it was really, really fun to get this back out. I remember I was looking for something to do a video on this week. Last Friday, I think, and I was like kind of frantic because I had no idea. Nothing was really like calling to me, you know. And then I saw this thing just kind of sitting in the corner with a couple other of my big drum-shaped commercial machines, and you know, maybe we'll do a video of maybe like a you know, commercial machine shootout style type thing. I don't know. We'll workshop that in the parking lot for now, and you know, we'll figure it out later. But either way, it was really, really cool to get this thing back out again. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. I know a lot of people really like the CB, and they have never found one because they are pretty rare. But they're definitely super, super fun once you are able to find one, and if you find them for a decent price. But all you collectors out there, if you do find one of these, always snag them up. You know, even if they are all rotted out in the bottom of the drum, mostly because, you know, for a lot of the people that are out there, you know, these things are worth it in the parts alone. Whether it's the drum that's rotted out, the motor that's rotted out because people sucked up water as if it were like a wet dry vac. I'm sure this one was at some point, unfortunately. But, you know, we can only prevent these things' destruction while we have them, not while the person before us does. So, but always important to take care of these little guys. Well, big guy. But anyways, I hope you guys all enjoyed the video today. I know it was a really fun one for me. And of course, I will keep trying to stay on my schedule, and you know, we'll get there. We'll get there. Trust me, we'll get there. But anyways, you guys all have a great rest of your week and a fantastic next weekend. And we'll catch you again next Sunday. Have a great rest of your day, y'all.